Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers, sisters, and friends. Jazakallah khair for joining. So it's 3 o'clock BST. Let's get started, inshallah, without much ado. So, first things first, a little bit of housekeeping. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me okay. Everything you can see okay, you can hear okay. I'm having a look at the broadcast right now. It should be all fine. So, yes, alhamdulillah, jazakallahu khairan. So yeah, welcome. Jazakallah khairan for joining for the start of the course, the Dawah Power course, inshallah, which is going to take place every Saturday and Sunday, starting at this time throughout the month of April, and we'll go into Ramadan obviously as well. And it's scheduled for, I think, 11 weeks, but we'll see how it goes. We may add some more dates, taking into account obviously the last 10 days of Ramadan. Jazakallah khairan. So yeah, without much ado, let's get started, inshallah. So first things and hold on a second, why is this not working? There we go. All right, a little bit of teething problems there. Right, hold on one second, let me just switch that off there. Right, you guys can see and everything. Okay, so first and foremost, right, we all know the famous hadith narrated by Umar bin Khattab that actions are but by intentions. So you guys have taken time out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Quaintrell. Oh, listen, are you hanging around? Because I need a mod, maybe. So can I mod you if you're hanging around? You know how to do it? I need someone with it. Sure, okay, because I need someone with experience of Twitch, just in case. Give me 1 second. Hope that worked. There you go. All right, sorted. Right. So we all know the famous hadith of Umar bin Khattab, narrated by Umar bin Khattab. The actions are but by intention. So you guys have taken time out of your schedule to be here today, to go through this, inshallah. And inshallah, you're going to stay through and go through the entire course. But first and foremost, I want you to think about why it is that you're attending this. Why are you taking the time out actually to watch this? What do you intend to do with the knowledge? Okay, so I want you to really, really think about this and actually, you know, have that intention, have that mindset of everything that we're going to be discussing in today's session and future sessions. Is it a little bit dark? No, it's all right. Okay, it just looks a little bit dark on my screen. Everything that we're going to be discussing today, inshallah, and obviously in future sessions, what are you going to be doing with that? Jazakallahu khairan for following sameness, and for everyone else that has followed previously before the stream started. So just think about, you know, why it is that you're attending, what you intend to achieve out of this course. Okay, just a little bit of background of the course as well. The course was actually designed offline, so I've been delivering this course for about 10 years or so. We'll come to that. So if there's a few little quirks, it wasn't designed for streaming. There's some things that I still need to tweak, but I mean, for the most part, it'll do. So yeah, just have that plan in mind, have that intention solidified that this is actually what I want to do with the knowledge, that I'm actually going to put the knowledge to beneficial use, because you know the Islamic maxim that at the end of the day, knowledge is either going to be beneficial for us or it'll act against us, that if we had the knowledge and we didn't act on it, then we're going to be held accountable for that. So just take a moment just to renew your intentions, just to tell yourself, convince yourself, you know, why you're here and actually what you're going to do with it. And this also sets yourself up with a goal of where to go in the future, inshallah. Now, along with that, what do you think my intentions are? What do you guys think? Obviously, you know, in a real life scenario, I'd be asking you guys, what are your intentions? And people would say, you know, I want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this and that. At the end of the day, everything is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? What do you guys think that my intention is? To convey the message? Okay, yeah. What else? So I want these series or these sessions to be completely interactive. This is why we've chosen Twitch as a platform, because the latency is very quick, so I can see what you guys are writing straight away. You're there to get rid of your doubts. Okay, inshallah, we'll help with that. Definitely. I'm actually a firm believer that once you've actually gone through this course and actually understood it properly, there is no room for doubt. That, you know, the truth, the haqq is so clear that once everything has been, you know, all the falsehood has basically been wiped away, that anyone with a rational mind will be able to just see the truth as plain as day. So inshallah, to empower others to convey the message. Yeah, that's generally why I like to teach Dawah. So obviously, aside from pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is basically is all of this. I'm not going to read it out for you because I'm sure you guys can read it faster than I can talk. But the crux of what I'm getting at here is obviously, you know, I'm seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But my point here is to make sure that you guys understand the material. And if you guys are not understanding the material, it's not a fault on your part. It means that maybe I'm not explaining it properly. Maybe there's another way that I can explain the point. So I really want you guys to feel that, you know, if you're not getting something, if something doesn't make sense to you, let me know. Let me know, and inshallah I will try to explain everything as best as I can. Maybe I'll try another way. Because at the end of the day, if you're not understanding, if you're not following, I'm not achieving my objective of being here, and you're not achieving your objective of assimilating the knowledge to be able to use it. Does that make sense? So that's the agreement that I want to make with you guys for all the sessions that we're going to be taking part in, inshallah. Okay, as well as everything else that is written there, inshallah. Okay, cool. So again, you know, oh, that's annoying. So I'm using my phone's camera here and hoping let's just say the big search engine is a little bit aggressive in picking up my speech in terms of what I'm saying and thinking I want a notification. Anyway, so just a little bit about me. So I've been doing this, you know, for many years. It's all written there. So alhamdulillah, you know, I've got a lot of experience and background in that regard, and I've put this course together from material from a lot of different people, from my experiences in giving dawah in and around the UK, around Europe, and internationally as well. And I've seen a lot of different things, and I've tried to distill it down to the most pragmatic principles. What I will tell you now, so anyone who's here is going to be a little bit disappointed with this, is I'm not here to teach the sensationalist version of dawah, like the stuff that you see on YouTube, that you say this, they say that, you say this, they say that, boom, shahada. It doesn't work like that, okay? That's just what you see on YouTube is not real. It's manipulated for the sake of making videos and getting likes and whatever have you, okay? What my objective is to teach you the methodology of dawah, that inshallah you'll get the one like that you need, which is the like from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm going to teach you the way that actually works if your objective is to sincerely call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather than showboating and having, you know, being able to win an argument. You will be able to win an argument afterwards. So we'll go through argumentation again. We'll go through argumentation. That'll be next week. But that's not the methodology. That's not the crux of it. So in this first weekend, we're going to be learning the principles and techniques which are, in my opinion, count for 80-90% of the effectiveness of your dawah. So really the effectiveness of your dawah is all contained in this first weekend. It's not the arguments, it's not how do you prove this, it's not how do you distill points down and things like that. It's everything we're going to be discussing this weekend. It is a little bit dry, but unfortunately there's no getting around that, because if you don't cover these topics, then what you have is a dawah strategy that's very lame, and it results in shahadas that really don't count, because the person taking the shahada doesn't understand what they're doing and doesn't really get involved in the religion, and essentially they fall out of the religion as soon as they come into it. Okay, let me just check my notes. Anything else? Right, okay, cool. Right. Oh yeah, and also I'm going to be trying to impart obviously the wisdoms as well. Okay. So again, we've just basically gone through this. You can read all this. By the way, with regards to the notes, so once whatever we get through today, if you guys join the Discord, you can do exclamation Discord. I will put up a PDF of all of the slides that we've covered today up on Discord, inshallah. So you'll be able to see everything there. Okay. I'm going to skip this next slide because that is for live sessions. We're not doing a live session right now. Okay, so we're also going to skip this part, which is basically this section is just to deal with the proofs and the evidences of the superiority of Dawah. Basically, so just to save time, I want you to think about a concept of what is the most rewarding act of ibadah that you can do. And some people will say, Salah, Hajj, X, Y, Z. But the point being that at the end of the day, there's only so much Salah you can perform in a day. You can only perform Hajj once a year. You can only do Ramadan, engage in the month of Ramadan once a year. You can only fast once a day maximum. There are limits to how much ibadah you could do, even if you're the most practicing person. And by the way, there's also a separate hadith that you're not supposed to do this, There's a hadith from Rasulullah ﷺ where it's specifically negating, someone who said that he's going to fast every single day and yada, yada, yada. But the point is there's a limit. So the way that you can increase your rewards, inshallah, is by giving dawah, by calling someone to Islam, because when you guide someone to khair, to goodness, you gain a share in that as well. So if you were the cause, and obviously, literally at the end of the day, hidayah, guidance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but if someone came to Islam through your efforts, then you would get a share in that as well. So all of their salah that they're performing goes onto your scales as well, without diminishing from them. Their hajj, their fasting, their zakat, their sadaqah, their charity, everything that they do, it also goes onto your scale. So this is a methodology for increasing your rewards. Jazakallahu khairan Umerch for joining us, for following. Okay, so at the end of the day, I don't want to spend too much time on that, because I'm sure you guys understand the obligation of da'wah because you're already here. So I don't need to preach to the converted. This is a fun, it's a serious point actually, comic that I found. But yeah, we're all in this world together. We're all in the same boat. There's a number of proofs and evidences of the necessity and the obligation of da'wah. So that's that whole section. That will obviously be included in the PDF that I'll send to you guys, that I'll upload on Discord later on today. Okay. Right, so let's get into it, inshallah. Okay, first and foremost, I want you guys to recognize there's two different statements that we're going to make, right? Dawah is easy and dawah is difficult. Dawah itself is actually easy. The difficult part is struggling with your nafs. Okay, it's your nafs, your innate sense, not necessarily your conscious, but your nafs. There's something going to be inside of you, the whisperings of shaitan, waswasa, that is going to make excuses to you why you shouldn't give dawah. Okay, there's always going to be something that happens. There's always going to be an excuse somewhere along the way. We'll see popular and famous du'at on YouTube and whatever have you. And we'll wish that we were like them. But these people weren't born like that. They put the effort in. And that's the first thing to recognize, that people get to where they got to because they put the effort in. And you have to put the effort in to achieve any kind of success. Success doesn't come for free. Even Jannah doesn't come for free. You need to work for it. So you need to work for this and be aware of the obstacles that is in everybody's way as well as your way, and overcome those if you actually want to truly gain the success in dawah. So if you actually want to be successful and good at it, you have to practice at it. There's a Chinese proverb that I actually really, really love, which is that the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Okay, so just think about that. That at the end of the day, you have to make that sincere, conscious effort in order to get involved in it. It's not just going to happen arbitrarily by itself. You're not going to be really, really good at it arbitrarily just by itself. You're going to have to keep working at it. Now, and I also want you to think about, this is us in our times, right? Think about the times of the messengers. Think about the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he started. Now, imagine yourself in their footsteps. That if you were in Makkah at that time, and your neighbor, who you said, yeah, you know, he's a nice guy, and he comes to you one day. Imagine your neighbor comes to you one day. You're in, 1400 years ago. Your neighbor comes to you and says, you know, an angel visited him and told him that he's the messenger of God. And from now on, whatever he says is not his own words, but the words of God. And that you have to listen. Jazakallah khairan Kalmiro for the follow and for joining us. And the angel says that, you know, you have to listen. That, you know, we all have to listen to this person and obey everything that he says. Otherwise, it's like we're rejecting God, and it means that we'll be destroyed for all eternity. So this is what he says to us. And we come to know that he's told his people, he's told his family, the people who are closest to him, and they forsook him. They rejected him. People started to call him crazy. People called him a liar. People called him a soothsayer. Now, put yourself in their shoes. Is this someone that you would actually think, oh yeah, you know what, this is a good idea, I'm going to follow this, you know, I'm going to follow this person, this makes absolutely complete sense to me, you know? So obviously we know now historically, you know, what the truth was in the background behind the situation. But my point is, put yourself in their shoes, right? And I'm not making excuses for the mushriks, okay? I'm not making excuses for them. My point being is to recognize the difficulty of the dawah back in the days that the prophets and the messengers had. Now imagine, I've just put you in the scenario of a neighbor. Imagine it was actually your responsibility now to give the dawah then against to people who had no background knowledge, no information, no context of what it is that you were talking about, and they just basically had to take whatever you had to say. That would have been excruciatingly difficult, and this is difficulties that we don't have in our times. We don't have this in our times because, generally speaking, most people are clued up, especially in the more recent years, most people are clued up on at least the wider aspects of theology. You know, Nuh alayhi salam gave dawah for 950 years, you know, and, you know, you just imagine how many people did he have that were following him after 950 years, such that, you know, they would fit on the boat with him. You know, Lut alayhi salam was forced to flee from his people, you know, when Allah sent down the punishment. Again, he was there giving dawah as well. You know, Ibrahim alayhi salam had angered Nimrud the king to the point where he built a fire so great that the only way they could throw Ibrahim into the fire was to build a catapult. You know, you know, Yusuf alayhi salam was jailed for choosing the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over the path of shaitan. You know, and Isa alayhi salam, you know, from the Islamic theology, proclaimed, you know, the messengership, proclaimed Tawheed since infancy, and yet was rejected. You know, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, was loved prior to being appointed as a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thereafter, you know, was rejected and boycotted. The entire tribe was shunned. So the point being that the prophets and messengers and people of old, they've already done the hard work for us. We don't have it that difficult. So for anyone now in today's day and age, particularly, you know, when you're online and you're just sitting behind a computer, for anyone now to say, oh, you know, it's too difficult to give out, you're making excuses now. So the first battle is with our own nafs, it's with our own apathy. It's with you know, we have to fight the urge to, you know, just stay home, be boring. Get out there and get involved. Do something. Think about something, and, you know, take over. Because at the end of the day, it's on us now. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as the messenger to all of creation. Now, did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam meet all of creation? No, right? Which means that we, as the followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's our responsibility, it's our obligation that we have to take the message that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given, and we are the ones that have to propagate it to those to whom it hasn't received. Okay, the prophets and the messengers, they were on their own. We don't have that excuse now. There are so many different organizations and institutions that are involved in this. Get involved. Okay, so the point is that it gets easier with practice and perseverance. Dawah is a muscle. It's like a muscle. It gets stronger the more that you use it. Okay, it's more effective the more that you use it. You have to practice at it in order to be able to get proficient with it. And you're rewarded for the struggle. Don't forget, it's an Islamic principle that when you're struggling, the rewards for you are doubled. You know, until such time that you're proficient in such thing. So you have to keep persevering with it. Okay, I can't emphasize that enough. This is why this is the first slide. It's the most important point. Your first obstacle is your own nafs. Okay. Also, now here's a big thing. Beware the ego as the destroyer of good deeds. Okay. It's very, very easy, and I want you guys to be conscious of this. And this is a theme that we'll be coming back to over again. Beware that shaitan will find any way, any excuse to destroy the goodness of whatever it is that you're doing. So you could, for example, sincerely start out in a conversation with someone, and that may turn very heated, it may get very aggressive, and it's very easy to slip into a state where you're not giving dawah anymore, but actually what you're doing is causing the person to be rejected. And I can think of many examples from our own masajid, for example, where you have the people who are in charge, who are supposed to be the light bearers, the torch bearers, the people who are inviting people into the masjid, and yet they act in such a manner. Their intentions may have been pure when they took up that post, but somehow it's twisted in such a way that it's become exclusivity, and that it's become about, well, it has to be my way or you can get out, and this is my mosque and whatever have you. I mean, we all know these kinds of stories, that that there are certain elements within the community that, rather than becoming inviting and warm and welcoming, that actually they become divisive. It happens offline and online as well. So again, beware of shaitan in this regard, and have that. That's why you have to reflect back on your intention. You have to think, what is it that I'm doing? Why am I even here? Why am I even engaged in this? And if you're not achieving that objective, then there's something wrong. Something has, you've gone off track somewhere. Okay. And also, don't expect instant results. Don't think that just because you spoke to someone for 5 minutes and they haven't accepted anything, that either you're a failure or they're a failure. It takes time, patience. Okay, just have patience. Especially with family, it may be years before you can see the effects of or the fruits of your effort. Okay, so back to the ego point as well. Just be aware of a couple of points from history as well. Abu Jahl, the Prophet ﷺ's uncle, believed in the messengership of Rasulullah ﷺ, believed that he was a messenger of Allah, but tribalism prevented him from accepting Islam. And the same with Abu Talib. Abu Talib believed that he was the messenger of Allah, and this was proven in an incident that happened after the boycott, which we won't go into now for the sake of time. But again, he died proclaiming the religion of his fathers on his tongue, despite knowing the truth, and this is why he's going to be in Jahannam for eternity, even though he's going to have the least punishment. But the point being that knowing the truth is not the same as following the truth. Okay, and there are many numerous examples of that. Okay, so I hope that's clear. You guys are very quiet in the chat, so I'm I just want to make sure you guys are this is not too heavy. I'm trying my best to explain it properly. So again, it really comes back down to just think about what it is that you're doing and why are you doing it. Okay, actually there's a story of a monkey here. I want to actually remind me afterwards. I might tell you the story of the 5 monkeys. Okay, yeah, that's going to be interesting. The story of the 5 monkeys, I need to put that in here somewhere. Okay, right. So second most important topic, okay, is your akhlaq, the mannerisms, your manners, basically. How do you deal and interact with people? So you can see the question there. Imagine you possess all the knowledge in the world, but you had very bad manners. Who would want to receive knowledge from you? And I mean, really think about that. Who would want to receive knowledge from you? Can you imagine yourself that if you wanted to know about something, who would you go to as a teacher? Would you go to the one who was kind, warm, inviting, took the time to explain things to you, made sure that you understand it? Or would you go to a teacher that, although he knew the answers and he was smart, but was very condescending, very rude, very arrogant, very difficult to get a hold of, basically all of the negative traits? I mean, at the end of the day, you're obviously going to go to the first one, right? Even though he may not be superior in knowledge, but at the end of the day, people like to be treated with some degree of dignity. And the problem is that just because you have the knowledge doesn't mean that people are going to come to you. People will come to you if they feel welcome to come to you. They're not going to come to you just because you have knowledge. And if you have the knowledge, yet you conduct yourself in a manner that you drive people away, then who wants to come to you? No one's going to want to come to you. Right, give me 1 second. I think there's one. Okay, never mind. So yeah, so if I said, just because you have the knowledge, people, if you have that type of personality that people don't like to be around you, people don't like to engage with you, what use is your knowledge? It's going to die with you. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So there are multiple relationships that we have to bear in mind. That you have to have your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that obviously, keeping up with your ibadah, you have to have, keep up with your ibadah, your trust, your dua, and also obviously have that trust and that tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That things are obviously, whatever happens, we believe in qadr, we believe in divine predestination. We believe that things that are happening that is outside of our control is obviously, for the best. This is in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And despite the fact that we may not be able to see the wisdom behind some things, we always acknowledge that there is the wisdom there. Okay, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And we also have to, have our sincerity in calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The point there being that when we're calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we really want to, salvation for that person that we're calling to. We want the best for them. We want their accounting to be easy on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment. We're not calling to them for the sake of our own ego to say, oh, look, we were right, and look, I am the big Daee, and I'm the big Sheikh, and I'm the big Noor, and I'm the one who's doing the things. No, that's doing it for yourself. And if you're doing it for yourself, then your deeds are just going to be destroyed. Okay. We obviously have the relationship with people. You've got the examples there. We're going to go through. Okay. So let's go through the gentleness, right? With Musa and Fir'aun, for example, Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun. I mean, you imagine, Musa alayhi salam. He's one of the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the best of creation. One of the best of people. Going to Fir'aun, who is one of the worst of people. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Musa alayhi salam, and it's in the Quran, to speak to him gently. So at the end of the day, if one of the best of creation is who's speaking to one of the worst of creation is being told to be gentle, then how much more relevant is that for us, that we're not as gentle and as soft as Musa alayhi salam is, and we're not speaking to people who are as bad as Fir'aun was. So we should be more mindful of this and be a lot more softer. And also the idea of love and fear. So this is the methodology of Rasulullah ﷺ versus Machiavelli. So I don't know if you guys know who Machiavelli is. Don't bother looking him up. Machiavelli was an individual who propagated this idea that it was better to be feared than loved. So I want you to put yourself in the mindset of two different households. So you have a household that is governed by fear. Okay, you have, say, for example, the patriarchal or the father or the mother that govern the kids with an iron whip, beatings or whatever have you. Fear runs that household, and you have the other household where it's run with love. Okay, where the children are raised in respect and whatever have you. Now, in both households, for whatever reason, the parents are away. In which household do you think is there going to be mischief? It's going to be in the one with fear, right? Because as soon as that source of fear is removed, then all kind of mayhem is going to happen. When the cat is away, the mouse is going to play it. So they say. Whereas in the household with love, out of the love and respect, that they're still going to, conduct themselves in a way that their parents and their loved ones wish to do so. And it's the same with Muslims, around the world. That at the end of the day, we haven't even met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inshallah, we'll have that opportunity. May Allah give us all that opportunity. Ameen. But the point is, out of love for him is how we practice our daily lives and our why have I got a beard? Is out of love of emulating Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sister Aisha, Jazakallah khairan for following and joining us. So you can see that there's in terms of the two, what you should be aiming for people around you is for people to love your company and for people to love to be around you. If your personality is such that you are unbearable, the effectiveness of your dawah is going to be severely diminished. Okay. Drama versus reality, we've got a whole thing of that, so we're going to come to that as well. And also, don't forget akhlaq in yourself. At the end of the day, don't be the candle that burns itself out giving light to others. Okay, you need to also focus on yourself. You need to focus on your ibadah, focus on your iman, focus on, when life becomes too stressful, just take a step back. Just you need to have me time as well. Okay, because if you burn yourself out, then you're not going to be good to anyone. So you have time for da'wah, you have time for going out, and you have time for work, but you also have time for your own recreational stuff, things that help you relax, things that help you that you enjoy. No problem in doing that. It's up to you to strike that balance. So various other points to note as well is that I want you to think, I did some research on this a few years ago, and I have no reason to believe that this has changed. But there was there's been a lot of studies that were conducted, one of which was by a prominent Dawah organization, that practicing converts. Right, so this organization, they dealt with converts to Islam or reverts, however you want to call them. So people who had accepted Islam, they used to they recorded their details, and you would send them materials and whatever have you. And of the thousands and thousands of new Muslims, say that they had in their records, how many of these individuals do you think came from a dawah table? That randomly, and I'm not refuting dawah tables at all. My point is, how many of them do you think came from a source, where they just woke up one morning, encountered an individual, and just accepted Islam there and then? What do you guys think? Should have a poll here. I have got a poll here. I could do the poll. Not many. The number will actually shock you, because it actually shocked me. Believe it or not, not a single one. Not a single one. They had a few thousand, and not a single one had come like that. In every single case of a person, of a new Muslim, and we're talking about a practicing one now, okay? A practicing Muslim, not someone who just accepted the Shahada and then fell out of Islam, 10 minutes later. We're talking about actual practicing people. In every single case, in almost every case, okay, so let me get the numbers right. There was no cases where they had just woken up one day and just accepted Islam and that was it, khalas. In most of the cases, almost all the cases, they were referred to Islam from someone who was close to them. In a small number of cases, they had experienced some like kindness or some gesture and looked into it a little bit further of their own accord. But the overwhelming driving factor of people coming to Islam was through someone else's interactions with them. That they, whoever that was, a friend, a colleague, whatever have you, but somehow they were introduced to Islam that way, and that's where the love of it started to settle in their heart. Does that make sense? So again, there are some that came, from doing their own research, from watching, YouTube videos and whatever have you. But again, this is the very, very small minority. The point that I'm getting at is, don't have this idea in your head that for someone to come to Islam, like the Shahada is not the be all and the end all. It's not, your job's not over just because somebody said these magical words. Okay, if they don't understand what those words mean, if they don't act on it, then what was the point of saying it? They haven't really said anything. The point being that, when you want someone to come to Islam, when you want someone to actually understand what the belief is, to live according to that, there's a long drawn out process, and a huge part of that process is your relationship with that individual. So don't have this idea that you're just going to go out and start speaking to everyone, and then all of a sudden you're just going to have waves and waves and waves of people accepting Islam. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen like that. So I want you guys to make sure that your expectations are set correctly, so you don't disappoint yourself. Just be aware that it's work. It's easy, but it's work. Again, we're coming back to the first slide, that you've got to overcome your own nafs to do this. Also, just be aware, whenever you're engaged in activities as well, back to this thing with akhlaq, and this is a very, very important point, and unfortunately it's something that I see, unfortunately, even in Dawah circles, experienced Duaat falling into. Again, be aware, we're going back to the very first slide. Why are you giving Dawah in the first place? Why are you giving Dawah in the first place? Defending our stance about the religion rather than focus. Yeah, we'll come to we'll come to specifics. I'm building up the general, the foundational principles first. But yeah, I agree. That's actually we'll actually come to that today. That point. Jazakallah khairan. Oh, I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, why are you giving Dawah in the first place? Unfortunately, it's really sad, but I've actually seen a number of du'at, people who are popular on YouTube, whatever have you. Like, I used to go to Hyde Park a lot. Jazakallah khairan, Fisa, for joining us. And people would refuse to give the message of Islam unless it was on camera, unless it was being recorded for YouTube or whatever have you. Or they would refuse to let people know about some activities that somebody else was doing to help propagate the message of Islam. The point I'm getting at is, look, if you're intending to give dawah for the sake of dawah, because you want to guide people, you want to save people from Jahannam, because you want the message of Islam to be understood truly and properly, you don't care who's giving the message, obviously, as long as you agree with the methodology of how they're giving the message. But the point shouldn't be that it's not you. Your focus shouldn't be of, look, I'm the one doing the message. Your focus should be on, like, the message is being given, and it doesn't matter by who or in what circumstance. The moment you start thinking of, no, I want people to be listening to me, or I want people to know it's me, that's you focusing on yourself. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me just go through. I've got a whole bunch of notes here that I've collected over years, points to come to. So yeah, basically make sure of what you're calling to. Are you calling people to accept Islam, or are you calling them to accept whatever it is that you want to push? There's a lot of subtle differences here. We'll come to how you tell the differences. But again, you want the person to accept Islam, not necessarily, if you're just trying to get them to accept the particular flavor that you're trying to push, there's something wrong there. At the end of the day, the objective is for them to understand La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah first and foremost, regardless of your own personal perspective, whatever your madhab is, whatever your fiqh positions are, whatever have you. The first objective is obviously La ilaha illallah, and then Muhammadur Rasulullah, which we'll be covering inshallah. Yeah. Jazakallah khair. By the way, the reference for Musa and Fir'aun is Surah Taha, ayah 44. By the way, I'm just going through. Okay, yeah. Also, I didn't cover this as well. Akhlaq with people. So don't assume that someone who is a sinner will remain a sinner for the remainder of their life. So you just have to have a look at some of the greatest Sahaba that they were. And some of them started out as enemies of Islam. You have, for example, Umar bin Khattab, who set out to attack Rasulullah ﷺ on the very day that he took Shahada and completely reversed his position. You have Khalid bin Walid, the greatest general of history, who started out as an enemy of the Muslims. And battled the Muslims, the Battle of Uhud. If you guys don't know about the Battle of Uhud, it was the second great battle. The Muslims, when you had a bunch of riders that went behind the hill because the archers left, but that charge was led by Khalid bin Walid. So you have very prominent individuals who were enemies, who started off as enemies of Islam. Don't think that just because they're on a bad path currently that they'll stay there. Okay, some people actually actively are seeking enlightenment, and because they can't find it, they unfortunately fall into a path of self-destruction. I remember a particular story that Sheikh Kamal Makki was telling us at one point, where he was on a dawah drive. They were out in the park or somewhere, giving dawah, and he saw this huge guy approaching, had tattoos and metal rings and whatever have you. He just seriously looked like he had harmed himself, in multiple different ways. And it was like, I don't want to deal with this. Whereas, he turned his attention to a nice elderly couple, quiet, whatever have you. and he was speaking to them, and nothing much came out of his discussion with them. But he then discovered that another brother had actually spoken to that big guy with the tattoos all over his face and whatever have you, and that guy accepted Islam. He actually woke up, and he actually woke up that day, and I said, and I know I say people don't just wake up and look for it. He woke up and he had, he had, I suppose his fitrah was calling to him that, look, there is a higher purpose, and he just happened to run into them, and he agreed with everything that was said. But the point being, you can't judge a book based on its cover. Okay, so don't think that just because the nature of the person that you're looking at right now, that's always going to be them. Okay, your objective is, is still the same. It doesn't change. Okay, we'll come to that one next. Okay, now, right, before I show you this next slide, here's my question to you guys, and I want you guys to think about this very carefully. What is the greatest sin in Islam? Okay, what is the greatest sin in Islam? And rather than you just giving me the answers in and of itself, I want you guys to explain it as well. I want you guys to back your reasoning up. Okay, I was going to say I can hear. Actually, what was the question? The question is, what is the greatest sin in Islam? I'm just adding on the Islam. What's the greatest sin? And before you give you and whilst you give your answer, I want you to explain it as well. Shirk because it kills the whole point of creation. Shirk, associating partners with Allah. Okay, that's the definite. Shirk, associating. Yep. Okay, you guys are explaining what shirk is, but why is that the greatest sin? What makes that one more greater than anything else? Oh, okay, good. Okay, so yeah, so brother Abu Muhammad says that on the basis that it's the sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that he will never forgive if you meet him in that state, that's why he's saying that shirk is the greatest one. Okay, right. I'm actually going to surprise you. I'm actually going to say it's not the greatest sin. Okay, and I'll let you freak out for a second while I take a sip of water, and then we'll explain why. Okay, so let's have a look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran. Okay, and this is not to, you guys are not wrong, but you're not completely correct as well. Okay, so in Surah Al-Araf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to say that my Lord has only forbidden immoralities, what is apparent of them, what is concealed, and sin and oppression without right, and that you associate with Allah that for which he has not sent down authority, and that you say about Allah that which you do not know. Okay, so there's a couple of points here. This ayah, actually, one of the lessons I'll tell you in advance is that I want you guys to be ready to challenge your own assumptions. Okay, this ayah is talking about different levels and categories and classifications of sin. So you start off from the lowest one, which is the immoralities and what is apparent and what is concealed. And then you go up to the major sins, then sins and the oppressions without right, and the bigger sins. Okay, and then that you associate with Allah that for which he has not sent down authority. And this is basically what shirk is, that you associate with Allah, and you either deny the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to whom they belong, to whom Allah has exclusivity over those, or you give you bring something else up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's level. Basically that's what shirk is. Okay, but this is mentioned here as third. Okay, and the last one mentioned in the ayah is that you say about Allah that which you do not know. Okay, now why is this? Why do you suppose that is a higher level again of sin? It's something that's mentioned after shirk. and in the order it demonstrates that it's higher. I want you guys to think about it. Why would that be higher? Why is that greater than shirk in and of itself? Anyone? Okay. I'll give you guys a few seconds. Okay. Think about this. When an individual is engaged in shirk, yeah, exactly. Jazakallah khair. When an individual is engaged in shirk, okay, who does that affect? That only affects that individual himself, right? And at the end of the day, that individual is going to be accountable for themselves. They meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that state, then, you know, at the end of the day, you know, they're gonna have a hard time, because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that, you know, that's not going to be forgiven. Okay, but if they start speaking about Islam, particularly from a platform of authority, and they start saying things that they had no authority to say, that they had no right to say, things that was incorrect, the output of which is that they could mislead people away from the deen. Now what they have done is they have spread the shirk. They have caused people to fall out of the religion. And that's a much bigger problem than just their own personal shirk. So yes, whilst shirk is a great sin, that if you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that state, that, you know, you're not going to be forgiven for it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised, it is also a much bigger deal that, you know, if you've pulled other people into it as well. And I want you to consider the mindset, and unfortunately I've seen this, and it's a terrible thing when it happens. This is where, again, the ego and akhlaq come into play. But imagine yourselves now in the shoes of, for example, an atheist. And I'm speaking now predominantly more towards like a Western-centric audience, because atheism is huge here in Europe. I think in America it's more, you know, they are more generally more theistic. You know, they claim to come from a more of a Christian background, but atheism is definitely a thing here in Europe. So you imagine you're speaking to someone who is an atheist, who believes in atheism because of scientism, who believes that science and religion cannot go hand in hand, which they absolutely can, but this is what his belief, right? And he comes across now a Daee, an individual who says, who claims, oh yes, but I'm going to use scientific proofs and whatever have you, and blah 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 blah, to prove that, you know, Islam is true. But he actually doesn't understand the science himself. He's just read something and regurgitated it, and actually understood it incorrectly, regurgitated it incorrectly, used that incorrect understanding to somehow fumble through what he thinks is a convincing argument, and boom, there you are. He's presented that to this atheist. And the atheist who's understood what he's saying and understands the correct, has the correct understanding of the science, what do you think that atheist is thinking? That atheist, I can guarantee you, is thinking that this religious guy has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. He's got basic facts wrong, and this proves to me that religious people are completely clued up on a completely misled on this fantasy, and it only serves to increase his hold in atheism. Does that make sense? That because this Daee has misspoken about something that they had no idea what they were talking about, they've only ended up solidifying the disbelief in the person who they were talking to. Okay, so, you know, it would have been better had they said nothing at all. So this is basically the problem, that it's very, you know, again, one of the other traps of shaitan is our tongue. It's very easy to speak and speak out of turn and speak without knowledge, because we want to win the argument, we want to win the debate, we want to have the proof, we want to be on the right. The phrase that I want you guys to learn, well, one point I want you guys to understand first and foremost is be ready to challenge your assumptions. So that was the first lesson here. Be ready to challenge your assumptions, but also learn the phrase "I don't know." if you don't actually fully understand and know what you're talking about and what the reasoning is, be very careful in giving the answer, because the wrong answer may actually serve to misguide someone and solidify their misguidance, and you do not want to be held in you do not want to be held to account for that. For this person to come on Yawm al-Qiyamah to basically complain that he was led into shirk, or his shirk was solidified by you. He encountered you, you claimed to be someone who was a representative of Islam, and when they spoke to you, you basically got basic matters wrong. That solidified his doubts and his disbeliefs, and he had no basis to think that Islam had any truth, because if it had the truth, you would have and should have known it. Does that make sense? So, for example, and this is an oft repeated one, there's an oft question of, why don't we eat pork? Okay, why do Muslims not eat pork? And the answer is 9 times out of 10. I actually do want to say 10 times out of 10, because I don't think I've actually ever heard anyone, aside from obviously the Duaat who know what they're talking about, I don't think actually I've ever heard anyone come up with the correct answer. But what do you guys think is the correct answer? Why do Muslims not eat pork? What do you guys think? What's the answer? Let's get you guys involved. Oh, sorry, Aditya, I missed when you asked to. That was a while ago. Yeah, what do you guys think? Why do we not eat pork? Ah, okay. I stand corrected. Exactly. Okay, that is the correct answer. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says so. What used to be the common answer several years ago, yep, exactly. Jazakallah. What used to be, I'm actually really impressed that you guys have said that. What used to be the popular answer back in the days, especially among the Indo-Pak community, is that, oh, because it's a filthy animal. It's a filthy animal, and that's why we don't eat it. And the problem is that creates a scenario now where this person says to you, well, okay, fine, let's just say we get some pigs and we raise them in a clean abattoir. We make sure that they're clean and they're washed daily. They have showers and massages, and they're only fed fresh fruit and vegetables and whatever have you. And there's like 10, 20 different generations of this going on, so that by the end of it, you have this pig that is as pure and as clean as is possible to produce. Can you eat that now? And of course, Muslims, you're forced to say no. You're forced to say no, and then at which point they say, well, why not? Because this animal is now clean. It's completely free of disease. And you're forced to say no, because that's when you realize, well, actually, no, it doesn't matter how clean the animal is. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said so. And that's the point. We can come up with our own wisdoms as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says so. We can suppose it, we can presume it, obviously without confirmation from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, without confirmation from the Messenger. This is only our suppositions. But you can't use your suppositions as the basis for the truth, because once your suppositions fall down, then in their mind the truth will fall with it. And this is the problem with a lot of scientific things as well. When you build Islam up on this pillar of science or whatever have you, when the science changes, your entire pillar collapses, and so does your representation of Islam with it. Okay? So this is why it's very, very important to have a very clear understanding of what it is exactly that we're talking about. And the answer is correct, which is the reason why we don't eat pork, because we believe in our Creator, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we believe in the message, and obviously we're going to come to how to demonstrate that in the forthcoming sessions. But ultimately, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, our Creator, has told us, has commanded us to not consume the flesh of swine, and so we hear and obey. That's it, because God says so. Literally, it's just that. You can never prove that the fire got cooled. Directly, no, but there's an indirect way. We'll come to it. We'll come to it. The point is, do you need to prove that specific thing or not? So, by the way, we never actually covered this. My methodology is I prefer an epistemic approach to all of these things. I don't like to go into the nitty gritty of what about this small point, what about that small point. I prefer to, rather than trimming the branches of the tree, I just prefer to drop the tree, the tree of fitna. I just prefer to chop it off at its root. You can just find that one thing, the jugular vein of it, and just cut it off there. Everything else dies with it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But once you know how to do that, then you can got a lot more flexibility. Okay, everybody understand that point? Good. By the way, these slides are first and foremost because from a Dawah perspective, they are, in my opinion, and which is also shared by various other people, they are the most important points to consider if you want your Dawah to be effective. I mean, that's why we say we hear and obey, because there's no way. We'll come to it. There is indirectly, but we'll come to it. Okay, now, drama versus reality. Okay, this is one of the most important points, not just for Dawah, just for general lifestyle, that I want you guys to understand. Okay, this is a very, very important, so please do pay attention. Okay, drama versus reality. We're going to use an example from the Quran and the Sunnah here, which is the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr. Okay, so who was Musa alayhi salam? Right? You guys know. If I was to ask you, if someone was to ask you, who was Musa? Who was Moses? What would you guys say? I want you guys, just start giving me. Give me a very brief description. What was his particular characteristic? What's the shortest, most concise description that you can give that just narrows it down? Just so we know exactly who we're talking about. It's not a trick question, by the way. Prophet and messenger of Allah. Okay, there were many, prophets and messengers of Allah. From among the best, okay. How many were among the best? How many bests are there? I want you guys to, really, explain to me the greatness of Musa alayhi salam. Like, he was one of the top 5 messengers. He's the leader of a nation. He was sent. His special gift, his quality was that that he could speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, right? He could literally speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly without intercessor. Okay, so here's what I want you to think. Okay, so this is who Musa alayhi salam is, one of the greatest men to have ever lived, someone who literally speaks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, the source of all knowledge. At the end of the day, Kalimullah, the source of which, at the end of the day, there is nothing beyond Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge, which means that if you've got direct access to all of knowledge, then surely that makes you the most knowledgeable person of all time, right? So when someone came to Musa alayhi salam and asked him, who is the most knowledgeable of people? Okay, what do you suppose Musa alayhi salam thought? And what was his answer? Again, he speaks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, direct source of knowledge. He's a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was given the Torah, he was given the commandments, made leader of the people. He said himself, right? And this is what I want you guys to think about. When he said himself that there was every reason for him to think as much, and there was no reason for him to think otherwise. Right? That's what I want you guys to think about. That when Musa alayhi salam said that, of all of the, the most knowledgeable person, it must be him. Because who else could it be? At the end, he talks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. Right? So it must be. Yeah, he did. Okay, it must be him, right? This is the drama. Okay, the drama is your own subjective perception of what the reality is. Okay, it's a perception that is purely related to you. Okay, it's what you think. And when we're not saying it's unfounded, we're not saying that there was no basis, there was no reason for it, it was not, you know, your drama. By the way, I mean, drama is the loose word here. We're not saying like your drama like you're making a drama out of nothing, or the Indian dramas or anything like that. Okay, so don't misunderstand. What I mean by the term drama here, and I actually took this from Hamza Georges, who took it from somewhere else. But what we mean here is that this is something that is just going on in your head, right? That Musa alayhi salam, and not exclusively in your head, right? I mean, I'm sure everybody would have agreed that yes, Musa alayhi salam is the most knowledgeable person by virtue of his status, okay? The point being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrected him and said he's not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that there is someone who has more knowledge, which is Khidr. Okay? The point that I want you guys to understand is that this idea, this perception of who was the greatest one, that he had this idea in his head and he had every reason to believe it, no reason to believe otherwise, but it was wrong. That was his own drama. That was his own perception in his head, and anyone else who shared it, which is a very, and I want to get this point across, it was a very fair and natural belief. But the reality is something else. Okay? That's my point. The reality is something else. So anyway, by the way, this story obviously is supplemented by hadith, but it's in Surah Al-Kahf for a reason that we have to read every Friday to remind ourselves of this. This lesson is very important in a general perspective. Anyway, so as the story goes, Musa alayhi salam, he sets out to meet and engage with Khidr to learn from him, because he wants to, Surah Kahf, chapter 18, because he wants to learn from him. Okay, again, sincerity to the learning. Musa, you know, he's there's no arrogance here, or why aren't I the best, whatever have you. He's going out and he's learning. Again, don't forget, we're going back to the lessons of Akhlaq. Okay, now I'm sure you guys all know the story, so I'm just going to paraphrase over it very, very quickly. Okay, for the sake of time. How are we doing for time? Okay, we've been an hour. Okay, not bad. Right, okay, so whilst he was with in the company of Khidr, there were 3 events that took place. Okay, the first event being that Khidr had vandalized the boat without reason, so they needed a way to cross the river. These poor fishermen came, they offered them passage across the river, and whilst they were crossing the river, then Khidr started to vandalize and damage the boat. And again, here's the point here. Musa alayhi salam is witnessing this whole thing. Jazakallah khairan, Dean Spati. Got that right? Din Spati for joining us. Again, Musa alayhi salam, he's seeing the whole thing. You know, all of this is unfolding before his eyes. There's no background knowledge or anything there that he's not witnessing. So again, being the just individual, he complains about this. You know, why are you damaging these people's livelihoods? Okay, because from his perspective, and this is the point that I want you to get across, from Musa alayhi salam's perspective, and it was a very fair conclusion to jump to, that Khidr is vandalizing the boat without reason, right? That's what he can see. There's no other conclusion that he can draw from what he's witnessing. Does that make sense? Okay. Then you have the second incident when they reach the other side, when Khidr goes up to a boy and basically commits cold-blooded murder. Again, you know, from everything that Musa alayhi salam can see, it literally is, from his perspective, just cold-blooded murder. Absolutely no call, no explanation, no justification. It's a boy. What could a boy possibly have done, right? And then the third instance is when they, obviously after a lot of traveling, they approached a village and they were looking for some hospitality, but the village turned them out. Now, background knowledge. Why was that such a big deal? Why was the village turning them out to be a big deal? Well, don't forget, this is in the post-Abrahamic era, when the general norm of the culture was that if a traveler came, that you were obliged to be hospitable to them for 3 days. So by the fact that these guys turned up to a village, and they were travelers, they came to a village, and these villagers were not hospitable at all and basically turfed them out, shows basically just how jahil that they were, just how ignorant that they were, just how backward that they were, right? This was a big thing, you know, in the culture at the time. But anyway, on the way out, they see a wall that was collapsing, and Khidr sets about to repair it, to rebuild it. At which point Musa alayhi salam basically says that, you know, we could have just charged for this. You know, we could, you know, you've done them a favor. We could have charged for this and paid to stay somewhere. And at this point, they separated paths, and Khidr gave him the explanation. But the point that I'm getting at is that from Musa alayhi salam's perspective, Khidr, after being treated so badly by the villagers, is just doing them a favor for free, for no reason. Does that make sense? So the point to get at is all of this is happening in front of Musa alayhi salam's eyes, that this is the natural and the singular and only conclusion that you can draw, that, you know, and he's struggling to reconcile this with some greater, higher knowledge and purpose. So at this point, then they part ways, and Khidr alayhi salam, Khidr, some of the Anbiya base, some of the scholars, they say that he must have been a prophet of God because he had foreknowledge. So Khidr basically explained to him the reality of the situation. That with regard to the boat that was being vandalized, that there was an army coming down the river that was seizing all of the boats to increase the naval fleet. So by damaging the boat, Khidr had made it such that the king and his army would ignore the boat because it was useless for their purposes, which actually meant that these poor fishermen, after this king and his army had gone through and just basically confiscated all of the boats, these guys were left with the only boats now. They basically had exclusivity of the fishing trade. They literally just became instant millionaires. So not, you know, Musa alayhi salam supposed that Khidr was damaging their livelihood. In fact, their livelihood just increased exponentially. Khidr had actually saved it and made it. Does that see? Just that small bit of knowledge, that small bit of information flips the understanding of the situation completely around. And again, with regards to the second incident, we won't go into that too much because I don't know about Twitch's TOS and stuff like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, Khidr had foreknowledge, obviously from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he'd caused great mischief, and obviously must have had permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever he did. We won't go into that one on this platform. But with regards to doing the villagers a favor for free, Khidr had actually preserved, so there was inheritance that belonged to some orphans that was underneath the wall that might have been usurped or taken by somebody else. So Khidr was actually preserving the wall to preserve the secrecy of the inheritance until such time that the two boys would be able to claim it for themselves. So the point that I'm getting at here is that in every single one of these situations, that even though Musa alayhi salam is witnessing things happening in front of him and drawing a natural conclusion, just that little bit of missing information that he was unaware of meant that his understanding of the situation was actually completely the opposite of what the reality was. Does that make sense? Just going for the host. Okay, so I'm hoping that makes sense, that just because you perceive something in a particular way doesn't mean that the objective reality of that is actually the same as what you perceive it to be. Okay, so let me give you some example from the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Okay, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which was an incident that happened with the Muslims when they went to Mecca for Umrah, and they basically made this agreement with the Quraysh. And the treaty had the four major conditions, which was that there would be peace for 10 years, that anyone who left the Quraysh and went to Mecca would have to be delivered back, but anyone who left the Muslims from Medina and went to the Quraysh would not be given back. So again, it's a single-sided deal here, and they would not be able to perform Umrah that year. Now, this agreement obviously was ratified by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but there were individuals who were very, very displeased with it. You know, Umar bin Khattab, for example, was very, very displeased with it and thought that you know, the mushriks were basically getting one over on the Muslims. But after the conclusion of this, when the Muslims were going back, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam Surah Al-Fath, which begins with, indeed we have granted you a manifest victory. And it was actually because of this Treaty of Hudaybiyah that the Dawah managed to spread, and the increase of Muslims increased basically exponentially from this treaty to the they were able now to, Muslims were able to now give Dawah to different tribes, different areas, and whatever have you, and basically increased in numbers exponentially. If you have a look in the Sirah, this is how when at the point of Rasulullah's farewell pilgrimage, the farewell Hajj, there were over 120,000 Muslims in attendance. So even though on the face of it, it looked really, really detrimental, it was actually the reality of it was something completely different. Was something actually that was extremely beneficial. Even have a look at a modern time example now. 9/11, terrible, terrible, terrible event. Muslims were blamed for it. Islam has been attacked pretty much every single day in all of the media around the world. But also have a look at it from the other perspective as well. Rasulullah said that there will come a day that Islam will enter every single household, and now it has, and more people are aware of it, more people are looking into it, and more people, the information, we're in the age of the internet where information is available now, and more people are readily accepting of it, because the batil is becoming a lot more clearer to see. They can obviously Muslims are engaging in dawah efforts. We need to engage in more, but obviously, and this is where you need to be a part of it. But there is also goodness in it as well. Let's go through Erishar Hassan Khair. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Can these stories be used to explain the problem of evil? Let's come. Well, the problem of evil. Yes, there's a number of different points for the problem of evil. But yes, yeah, definitely, because again, the evil. How do you object? The problem with the problem of evil is how do you objectively define evil? Because evil is only subjective in your own perspective. What is Mr. Sabur saying here? It's 412. Right. Okay, so let's go through some other examples. I want you guys to think about this, right? I want you guys, so get your typing skills ready. There was a man, a poor man, who came to Rasulullah with some grapes. Okay. So he gave Rasulullah some grapes, and Rasulullah sat there with his companions, but didn't share any out. Basically, ate them all very happily and complimented the man on how good the grapes were. Why didn't someone explain that situation to me? Why did that happen? Why didn't Rasulullah share them out? Why was he why would someone accuse him of being greedy in that sense? Which is counter to his characteristic that obviously we know about him. It's not. What was the drama? What's the reality here? This thing is quite narrow. I've got to keep my head in a particular point to. What do you guys think? Wondering if this works. You guys heard the question though, right? Yeah, it was a gift for him, so he didn't offend the Ummah. Nope, that's not it at all. Okay, because I've got a lot of these, right? But just to drill the point home. So let me explain what it was. And there was a clue. There was a clue actually in the story. Okay, the guy was did I say poor man or old man? I hope I said poor man. Anyway, the guy was a poor man. So naturally, what type of grapes do you think he could afford? But sour grapes, not very good. But of course, that was all he could afford, and he wanted to give something to Rasulullah. So you also have to look at it from his perspective. That's the best at what he could do. That's the best of what he could afford. Okay. Side note: context matters, right? One person, giving £10 or $10 in charity may actually be more charitable than Bill Gates, for example, giving 1,000, because that £10 or that $10 as compared to that person's whole wealth might be a much more significant amount than $1,000 is to Bill Gates. Okay, so just because someone comes with £10, they may be giving up a lot more of what they had. Anyway, this poor man, he came with the best of what he could afford, which was sour grapes, basically. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate them all himself with a smile on his face, keep that person happy to not be offended, and didn't share them out just in case the Sahaba would make a face and that would offend the old man or the poor man. Does that make sense? So a number of lessons here, that first and foremost, that there is an alternative perspective, there is a why. This is why Rasulullah didn't share them out, but also that he was keeping in mind his relationship with people to make sure that this guy felt, this guy wanted to give a gift, and he wanted Rasulullah to be pleased with it. So even though it wasn't the best of gifts, Rasulullah showed him that he was pleased with it and consumed it, and with a smile on his face. He made those sacrifices so people had that love and that closeness to him. Can you imagine if Rasulullah said to this individual, say, "Oh no, these grapes are sour, chuck them away"? Can you imagine that person might feel so bad, so offended, so gutted, so humiliated that he might just turn away and never come back again. So again, in every single one of your interactions, again, we learn from our teacher Rasulullah. Just think about how the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you're behaving with another person, is this going to make your relationship with that person stronger, that they're going to take something from you or not? And this, every single interaction that Rasulullah had with people, this is what was exemplified. We're going to come to a particular slide on this. Okay, so let's have another example. Again, this is a real example. Okay, yep. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Zeen. So another example. So during the fitna, so the fitna was a time when Muslims were being stirred up, when civil war was being stirred up against Uthman, may Allah be pleased with him, who was the third Khalif. And someone came to I think it was Abdullah ibn Umar, so Umar bin Khattab's son, and basically asked him, is it true that Uthman, Allah be pleased with him, and again, let's remind ourselves, who is Uthman? He was the son-in-law of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That he's called Dhun Nurayn, the possessor of the two lights, because he had married one daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when she had passed away, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married another daughter to him. That's how much he was beloved by them. And he had. There are many qualities of him. We'll go into that another time. But anyway, people said, or this individual said, look, is it true what the people are saying, that Uthman did not attend the Battle of Badr? Abdullah ibn Umar said, yes, that's true. That he fled the Battle of Uhud. That was true as well. And Uthman did not give the bay'ah, the pledge of allegiance at Hudaybiyah. So Hudaybiyah, again, which we discussed, was, so when the Muslims basically went and they camped outside Mecca, all of the Muslims basically took a pledge of allegiance with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except for Uthman. Uthman didn't. Okay, so again, Abdullah ibn Umar said, yes, that's true. So this guy said, oh, Allahu Akbar, this proves that he is whatever. We don't need to repeat the claims. So whilst these things were true, what do you well, actually, there's a deep explanation, so I'm not going to wait for you guys to type it. Let me explain. Well, this is actually what Umar bin Khattab, Abdullah ibn Umar said. I'll be pleased with him. This was the explanation. Uthman didn't attend the Battle of Badr. He didn't attend because Rasulullah ﷺ specifically told him to stay at home and look after his wife, Rasulullah ﷺ's daughter, and that he would get the same reward as those who attended the Battle of Badr. Okay, and he was actually burying her when they came back. And this is when the Rasulullah ﷺ married another daughter to him. So the point was, he was commanded and instructed to stay home and look after Rasul's daughter, who was on her deathbed. She was very ill, his wife. Okay, so that's the reason why he didn't attend the Battle of Badr. He was commanded not to. He fled the Battle of Uhud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave him in the Quran. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven someone, it's up to no man. No man is then. How can any man then put themselves forward to challenge that? He's forgiven in the Quran. He's forgiven in the Quran. Okay, in Surah Ali Imran, ayah 152. And with regards to not giving the treaty, the bay'ah at Hudaybiyah, that's because he was the one sent in to Mecca to treat with the people, to come to an agreement. Look, can the Muslims perform Umrah, whatever have you? And because he didn't come back in good time, they assumed that he had been assassinated. So that's why a pledge of allegiance was taken to basically avenge his supposed death. And Muhammad basically said, and I will bear on behalf of Uthman. So you can also argue another way that he did. It was Rasulullah who did it for him. But the whole pledge being done, the whole bay'ah, the whole thing at the time was done for him on his behalf, because they thought that he had been attacked, and that's why he hadn't returned. I am not a sheikh, so I can't answer that question, bro. So yeah, again, coming back to the slides, I don't know. Don't put that one on me. I'm not a sheikh. Sorry, bro. I'm not a sheikh. I'm not a faqih. That's Allahu alam. I would say, if in doubt, leave it out. If in doubt, leave it out. So you see, basically, that these people who were being driven towards civil war were being told the truth, but only half truths. That if they understood the deeper reasoning behind some things, they would actually understand that their understanding of the situation was completely incorrect. Okay, here's another story. I don't know if this is true or not, but there was a sheikh who was wanted to go somewhere, or had to go somewhere, or basically he had to travel for whatever reason. His trip was funded for him. Okay, this Islamic scholar, personality, whatever have you. So he's in a hotel, and while he does his tour, whatever it was that he was doing. And then when he returns, the community that was paying for his trip get a bill from the hotel, and it basically, on the bill, is alcohol, 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 alcohol. Sheikh has been, well, that's what they thought. What was the reality of the situation? What do you guys reckon? Right. While you guys are typing up a response to that, let me explain another one then. Hotel got it wrong? Nope, the bill was correct. The bill was correct. Yeah, let's try not to use that term, because I don't, again, this is, bro, so I'm not going to allow that message, but I understand your point. That's not the correct as well. So yeah, try to not use terms that are unnecessarily derogatory, and just call it the hotel. Nope, that's not correct at all. So here's the reality. So let me explain for the sake of time. Again, this sheikh doesn't travel much, doesn't get out much for whatever reason. So he was being put up in the hotel and assumed that everything was paid for. So when he opened up, and again, this is, maybe you got, depends on what type of hotel you're in or whatever have you, but when he opened up the minibar, and he saw the alcohol there and assumed it had all been paid for, he poured it away. And of course, those who actually go to hotels and know that if you've taken something out, when it's replaced, you get billed when it's replaced. So as he's taken everything out and pouring it away, assuming it's been paid for, is being replaced the next day. So he keeps pouring out, it's being replaced and billed. So because he didn't understand that, this is how it works. But yeah, he wasn't drinking it. That's what he was doing. He was basically getting rid of it under the assumption that it's already been paid for and covered. Does that make sense? Yeah, but it can be right. It can be taken another way, but I know what you meant. But my point being that the usage of that term specifically wasn't necessary. That's where I was getting at. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's another one. Again, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's another example I thought was quite good. So a mother asked her daughter for one of 2 apples, and the daughter quickly took a bite out of each one. Okay, we won't repeat the term. The daughter quickly took it was held in the auto mod. It's you guys haven't seen it. So the mother asked the daughter for one of her 2 apples, and the daughter quickly took a bite out of each one. The drama there would be that the daughter is spoiling both of the apples, right, and just basically being selfish, being a selfish brat. The reality is, or the alternative perspective is, that she was tasting both apples so she could give her mother the sweeter one. Okay, we don't need to dwell on that, guys. Let's move on for that, because I want you guys to focus on this topic. Okay? Yeah, exactly. You got it. Okay. Now here's a true one. Okay. So this is a true one. Let's see if you guys get this. There is a rock group called Van Halen, which people in the West might have heard of. Okay, this is true, and I researched it myself. And they wrecked a concert venue on occasion. So they had a contract basically with their promoters or whatever, that they had to have a bowl of M&Ms in their room. M&Ms is the sweet, but no brown M&Ms. Okay. And on one occasion, when they were presented M&Ms and they had brown ones, the venue was destroyed and caused tens of thousands of pounds worth of damage. Like, I mean, it was they completely destroyed it. That's how it was reported in the media. Okay, that yes, this rock group that had this clause in it, blah 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 blah, completely destroyed this setting, this venue. Okay, I'll give you guys a minute, right? What do you guys think is the reality of the situation? I'll be very surprised if you get it right. So when I explain it to you, you'll find this quite interesting, which is why I included it. But what do you guys think? So the media is reporting that this group Van Halen, they were served brown M&Ms, which is against their contract because they're such divas that they have to have M&Ms but no brown M&Ms, and they destroy the venue. Like causing tens of thousands of. Remember, had an allergy? No. Good guess, but no, not an allergy. Okay, so see what else have we got here? Okay, yeah, I think we covered this slide. Right, okay. Okay, half past. Someone was allergic. No, not an allergy. Okay, so the explanation was, or is, that these guys were one of the biggest rock bands at the time, that they had 2 huge lorries with lots and lots and lots of equipment, amplifiers, speakers, and whatever have you, which have very, very specific requirements. They have power requirements, weight requirements, wiring, whatever have you. For them to set up and do a concert somewhere, they need very, very specific. They have a lot of specifications that need to be met, okay, which is up to the promoter to do. Now they inserted the clause about no brown M&Ms, but no brown M&Ms, and that was called, I forget what the term was now, but it was so I'm a software developer, and it's a sanity check. Basically, it was a quick check mechanism to see that when they got into their dressing room, that if they saw the M&Ms were there and no brown M&Ms, they knew that the promoter had read through the contract and the specifications and followed everything properly. But if they saw that either there was no M&Ms there, or that there were brown M&Ms there, they know that whoever was promoting the event, the concert, whatever have you, was not following the specifications properly, and there's going to be a problem somewhere along the way. And on the occasion that it happened, the people didn't read through and follow the specifications properly, and they were in kind of like an area where, you know, you get like indoor basketball courts and things like that, where it's like a laminated floor but it's soft, and that basically, they had already set up their equipment at the time, but that basically sank and destroyed because it couldn't hold the weight of the stage and all of the equipment. So that's where the destruction happened. But the destruction wasn't from the band's negligence, it was because the promoters didn't, you know, follow the specifications properly. But you see how it was twisted. So they're putting the clause in about no brown M&Ms wasn't them being divas or whatever have you. It was a very quick mechanism to test whether the people on the other side of the contract were actually fulfilling the contract fully and properly or not, or it was like an early warning indicator that something's about to go wrong. Does that make sense? So the point that I'm getting at from this whole slide, and you know, it's a very, very important point, is, and it's not just related to Dawah, it's for any kind of a situation, is don't ever presume that your perception of what is going on, regardless of how you reached that perception, okay, it doesn't matter how you reach the perception. The whole point is that your perception is literally just that. It's just your perception, and the reality of a situation still could be something completely different. You know, it happens in movies and things like that all the time. Plot twist. Oh, something else happened and boom, the whole plot twist. That's basically what it is. It happens in real life. So don't ever find yourself in a situation where you think and you presume to know everything that's going on. You know, people are talking behind your back or treating you unfairly, whatever have you. It may be something completely innocent, or you know, someone is you've given dawah to someone and they're not accepting or whatever have you, and you think, they just jahil, they're going to go to the fire. They may be telling you something. They may be arguing, I don't fully believe this or I don't fully believe that. Maybe they actually are convinced, but they're just still trying to mentally work out, okay, listen, how do I explain this to my family? How do I adjust to the lifestyle choice? Just because they've told you one thing doesn't mean that that's the actual thing. The point is, always keep an open mind. And this is where the principle of, you make excuses for your brother. You make 70 excuses. When you see something wrong or happening, make excuses. Try and think. There could be an alternative explanation. When you see something going that's not the way that you expected, ask. The cure for ignorance is to ask, okay? So it's just to have that humility and destroy the ego, destroy the idea, the notion that your understanding is absolutely, perfectly, completely correct. Does that make sense? Okay. Assuming that makes sense, let's... Okay. So, right. Examples of the gentleness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so we have many different examples here, and I want you guys to, and again, this is just a short list, okay, of specific ones that I picked out, that we can just have a look at. By the way, okay, let's do the zina one. So you can see under companions, the second one there, only because there's a lecture, if you guys are on Facebook, by Sheikh Naveed Aziz. I think it was on the Messengers of Peace Academy, on their page 3 or 4 days ago, that you can have a look at. It's called Emotional Intelligence in Dawah. But he basically speaks about this whole point, that where an individual, a companion, and of course everyone who believed in Islam, who met Rasulullah is a companion, requested from Rasulullah for zina to be made halal for him. He had this problem, and he wanted zina to be made halal for him. Now you can imagine if someone was to ask some of the shuyukh or scholars or whatever have you of our time, come into our communities and do that, they'd get slapped. And it wasn't that different then as well. People were trying to say, were trying to push him away, saying this is an inappropriate question and yada yada yada. But Rasulullah drew him close and asked him. He said, "Okay, look, is this, would you like this for your mother? Would you like this for your sister? Would you like this for your family, baby?" So rather than basically slapping him and putting him down. Rasulullah basically showed him the problem with what he was asking, in order to basically guide him to the truth, which was a much softer approach, a much more gentle approach than what others would have done. Okay, that's my point. So Sheikh Naveed goes into a lot more detail if you want to have a look at that video, which is on Facebook. Let's have a look. Let's just go quickly through them. I mean, Anas ibn Malik, who was his mother was Ummi Sulaima, I believe, who basically offered Anas ibn Malik to Rasulullah's service, right? So he was a young boy that he was in the service of Rasulullah for 10 years, and often the case of Rasulullah would send him, do this errand, do that errand, whatever have you. The young boy, he gets distracted, he goes off and plays with other people or whatever have you. But at no point did Rasulullah rebuke him, tell him off. Why haven't you done this? I told you to do that, blah, 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 blah. That the most Rasulullah ever said to him was, it might have been better if you had done it this way. Look at that. Like that's the harshest thing that Rasulullah said to him. That something could have been better, just doing it this way. Again, guiding someone to that which is better. These are the examples that we're supposed to be learning from. Allowed retribution for a companion. So when at the Battle of Badr, when Rasulullah was putting everyone in line, and one person complained, "Oh, you poked me, Rasulullah. I want revenge." He didn't say, "Look, I'm the messenger of God. I'm Rasulullah. I'm the commander. I'm yada yada yada." Just get into line. No, Rasulullah said, "Okay, fine. Lifted up his shirt and said, take your revenge." Right? Since you, and the companion in this case basically hugged him and kissed him and said that it was just an excuse, that just in case he dies, that the last thing he wanted to feel on his lips was Rasulullah. But the point was his Rasulullah's attitude towards this. Again, okay, look at the incident of the battle of Uhud. Jazakallah khairan for joining us. The battle of Uhud, for example. Now, just for those who are unaware, so this was the second major battle of the Muslims. It happened on the outskirts of Medina, and for the most part, the Muslims were winning. Okay, so the mushriks, the Quraysh, they were on the run. There was a particular hill there, which Rasulullah had stationed archers on to keep people from running around the hill, around the back of them, and trampling the Muslims from behind. So the archers were there basically to prevent that. So there was a horse guard there being led by Khalid bin Walid that wanted to try, but the archers kept him away. When the mushrikun were on the run, and Rasulullah had told them to stay in their position until he specifically comes to get them, regardless of whether they see us winning or you see the crows pecking our eyes, which means that they're dead and the crows are basically eating them. Stay there. But when the Quraysh started to run, now bear in mind, the Quraysh had come, with all this fanfare to try and make this big deal. They had come with their armor, they had come with their weaponry, they had come with their wealth, they had come with their families, they had come with their women decked out and whatever have you. So obviously, as they're trying to flee for their lives, obviously you want to save weight, right? You're just dropping everything, taking off the armor, drop your shield, drop your sword, drop all these, the gold and whatever have you, which is basically the war booty. So these archers saw this, and they saw the Muslims, stopping to pick it up. And they were like, "Oh, we want our share of the booty. We want our share." So they left. Okay, they left. They came down from the hill. Some stayed, but a majority of them left. And Khalid bin Walid, upon noticing this, then managed to make it around the hill, stampeded the Muslims from behind, and basically turned a victory into, you can call it a defeat, you can call it a draw, whatever have you. But it ended in basically a disaster with a lot of Muslims losing their lives. The Rasul was attacked. He had his face smashed in, and there was a lot of fitna that happened. The point is, what did Rasulullah say to the archers afterward? Nothing. There's nothing recorded. And I've looked and I've asked people of knowledge. There's nothing there. There's no rebuke of the archers. Why? Because they already know what they did. They already know that by moving from their position, which was against the command of Rasulullah, that many Muslims, their own brothers, their fathers, their sons, had lost their lives. Like, what else is Rasulullah going to say to drive that point in? You know, if that was us, I can imagine us, we would just be going on and on and on about it. Like, that's going to bring people back from the dead. But no, Rasulullah was very pragmatic about it. You have a look at the incident with the Bedouins and the non-Muslims, when companions, when a Bedouin basically entered into the masjid and started to urinate in the corner. Now, can you imagine that happening in any of our masajid? You know, I'm sure the people, the congregation, the brothers here would just grab the individual and just throw him straight out. But first and foremost, Rasulullah, which they wanted to do, the Sahaba wanted to do this, but Rasulullah told them, first and foremost, let him finish, right? Have some intelligence, because at the end of it, he's in the middle of doing it, and you know, it's not that easy to stop once you've started, and it's going to cause more of a mess. So let him finish, and then it'll be dealt with. Once he had finished, Rasulullah, you know, this guy, he saw, okay, all these people are about to jump me, that Rasulullah told who to clean it up. Not the Bedouin who had done the business, he told the Sahaba to clean it up. Now, this is like the equivalent of a drunkard coming in off the street into one of our masajid, in, you know, urinating in the corner, whatever have you, and then the mosque committee cleaning it up. Literally, I could not see that happening. But this is the case then. And Rasulullah just told the individual that, look, this is, you know, this is a masjid, this is a place of prostration. It's not the place for that. And you know, the Bedouin accepted Islam at this point. You know, basically saying, you know, that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and Allah forgive him and forgive me, i.e. the Bedouin, and nobody else. You know, he was referring to, you know, these guys were very angry with him, so he didn't want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them. He wanted them to be punished. The Bedouins were very harsh, and Rasulullah laughed and said, you're trying to constrict something that is too big to be constricted. But the point here is, look at the difference in the attitude and the reaction of Rasulullah to these events. When those same events would be played out today, how would our reaction be? And our reaction would be something completely different. Personal favorite of mine is when, you know, in the family, when he requested Abu Turab to come home. By the way, who knows who Abu Turab is? Have you heard of this person, Abu Turab? Who is Abu Turab? Let's see how many of you guys know your seerah very well. By the way, you guys, if you don't know the seerah very well, get to know the seerah. Yeah, good, excellent. Okay, who is so this is Ali, who is the cousin of Rasulullah, his son-in-law. He was married to Fatima, may Allah be pleased with them both. And this incident was when they had some kind of an argument, a marital dispute. Yes, it happens to the best of people. People have conflicts in their marriage. You know, you spend enough time with any other person, a conflict will come somewhere. So what did he do? He went to the masjid to sleep. It's an open courtyard. It's, you know, it's dirt floor. He went to the masjid to sleep, and that's where he was. And that's where, of course, Rasulullah found him. And rather than, you know, you can imagine, I can imagine, you know, several people in my community, I can imagine this is in communities all over the place, they would say, oh, my son, you know, what's wrong? Tell me, I am an old person, I've got experience, I will help you, I will solve the marital dispute, tell me everything, tell me the ins, tell me that. They just want to know the gossip, right? Rasulullah didn't do any of this. They didn't come up with, I am the messenger, I am the best, this, that, and the other, I am her father, I'm your cousin, I'm your father-in-law, blah, 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 nothing. Literally, all he said was, Abu Turab, let's go home. Abu Turab, father of the dust, because he, you know, it was a nice nickname, you know. So he's calling him in a nice way as well, you know, making light of the fact that he's sleeping in the dust. Like, you know, why are you sleeping in the dust? Let's go home. He knows that there was a dispute, but it's just like, let's just go home. No need to dig and get involved in other people's business and make yourself unbearable and whatnot have you. Okay, the matter, the job was done. Does that make sense? We have other ones as well. You know, gently advised the mercy to a Bedouin who boasted that he hadn't kissed any of his 10 children. Yeah, let me have a look at this. So we have several examples here. So all right, there's plenty of examples there. I've done 15 minutes earlier than I had planned to. I don't want to start the next slide yet because the next slide kind of goes more into the specifics of Dawah. Whereas at this point, we've just been going into like what are the characteristics of a Da'i, and I want to kind of keep it specific to this. So next week we can start that topic as a specific topic in and of itself. So we could go through a couple more examples, or if there are any questions, we can probably take them now on anything that we've covered so far. But really, ultimately, what I want to get, I just want to basically recap over everything that I wanted to instill so far was essentially to, the Dawah is basically overcoming your nafs first and foremost. That you've got to get out, be involved, know your limits, know when to say that, I don't know. So only speak about matters that you actually do know and you're confident on. Obviously, we'll be going throughout the remainder of the sessions. We'll be clarifying those aspects. Have that humility, that keep an open mind. Basically, don't be an arrogant person. Don't be an overbearing person. Don't be, try and be soft. Be the type of person that people like to be around. Be the type of person that would like to approach and will take your advice. And that means educating yourself as well and practicing what you preach. How does one determine when to be kind versus when to be firm? It's a good question. I guess it's all to do with, right, okay. I don't think kindness and firmness are opposites. I think you can be firm but always be kind. Like, you don't have to give up a position. You don't have to accept batil or whatever have you, but you can always do things in a kind way. Does that make sense? So just think about, in any type of situation when you want to express yourself, there's multiple different ways that you can express yourself. There's multiple different ways that you can handle yourself in any kind of a situation. So always try to pick the method that will cause the least conflict. And generally, what I find is the easiest way to do that is to try and find something that's uplifting about a situation. So, what do I mean by that? So one thing I find gets easier, and I wish a lot of people did it. It was just basically being courteous to other people, saying Jazakallah khair and saying thank you, just giving compliments, whatever have you. Compliment, it costs you nothing. It's just words off your lip. But just a kind word to somebody, it's a subtle thing, but it helps make all the difference. Like I have like my friends that I speak to. I call them, oh, my love, my dear, this, that, and the other. Obviously, we're not, swing that way, but it's a kind word. They know what I mean. They know what I mean. They know I'm talking to them from a place of affection, of kindness, and things, whatever have you. And it just helps to strengthen bonds of family, of friendship, of wherever have you. It's a social lubricant. Just being nice, and the more you're nice, the easier it gets. And not only that, niceness is one of those things that reflect back at you as well. Because if you're nice and you're happy and you project that onto other people, it gets projected back to you. You feel better about yourself as well. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair. Okay, yeah, tomorrow's session, inshallah, at the same time, we're going to be concluding this and going into the Dawah. Anything else? Any other comments? Any other feedback? Because this is, again, my first time restarting this, so obviously I want to try and make it useful and fruitful for you guys. So anything you guys have to offer me, inshallah, is greatly appreciated. If not, I think we might call it a day there. Oh, I also had a request from Hamza Zortsis to let you guys know about various seminars that Sapiens Institute is running. So you guys can find that either directly links off from his page, or you can go to Sapiens Institute. They do a lot of in-depth webinars on a variety of different topics. They're all free. So you can just sign up and gain access to those as well. Tomorrow I start at the same time. So right now it is 10 to 5 British time. So we've been on for nearly 2 hours. I'll be starting at 3 p.m. tomorrow, which was the same time. So whatever this time is right now, 2 hours earlier on the hour, inshallah. Is nasiha part of dawah? Nasiha, giving advice, of course. Of course. So tomorrow, the very first slide, believe it or not, is what is dawah? What is the definition of dawah? So we're going to cover exactly what dawah is, and by understanding what dawah is, then we'll know what dawah isn't. But yeah, of course, getting good advice. Can we get Hamza Georgius on here? I mean, the offer's open to him, but you know, he's a very, very busy guy. And I'm going to predict what he's going to say, right? He's going to say he's got his own webinars that he's doing and that you should attend them, because this is basically what he said when I asked him to let people know about this. He's, you know, obviously he agreed. He's let people know he's put on his Facebook, but he also said to let people know about, you know, the courses that he's running. But I would love to see Hamza here. Particularly if there's any particular topic. I have actually asked, there's a particular individual, Sabur, who works closely with Hamza from IERA, who I did specifically ask if he would join us next week, because he is, you know, he deals a lot with evolution stuff, which might be good to get into, but he's also busy doing live streams. There's a lot of stuff, bigger stuff. What course is he running? If you have a look at the Sapiens Institute, they've got multiple different courses at the same time, which is, so they basically, so where you can see I've got multiple different topics here that I've condensed down into one singular course. Sapiens are kind of like taking one particular topic and they expand that into, like, say 10 lessons, so they go very, very deep into individual specific things. But yeah, Sabur was on once before. How long is the class tomorrow? Inshallah, same time. Hopefully 2 hours should be enough. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. How was the quality of the stream, the camera? Any other feedback? You guys could hear me okay? Because obviously, you know, you guys are on the receiving end. I'm just assuming that everything is working and nobody says any otherwise. I'm assuming everything is all good. Okay, cool. Jazakallah khairan. So yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. And just, guys, you know, if you guys found this beneficial, you know, please do share the khair. You know, as we said, you know, the rewards of giving dawah. If you guide someone to goodness, you know, you'll get a share in it. So if you guys can help let people know, then, you know, other people can inshallah benefit from this, and you know, inshallah that'll be on your skills as well. I will put the PDF up on Discord for those who have joined. This session will inshallah be on YouTube at some point soon. I need to create a channel and stuff for that, but I'll let you guys know about all of that stuff in course. Also, I have, if you go to the About Me on the Twitch page as well, there's also a link to my Facebook page there as well, if you guys want to follow there. I don't like posting that much on Facebook now, because lately I've found it to be more a case of you have to post regularly to satisfy Facebook's algorithm to keep yourself relevant, and I don't like posting for the sake of staying relevant. I only like to post if there's something to post, and if I've already posted on something, then I generally try not to post it again. But then you've got the catch-22 situation that nobody knows anything posted because you haven't satisfied the Facebook algorithm. So this is the catch-22 that I don't like playing. But yeah, otherwise we will, I guess, we will see you guys tomorrow inshallah at 3 p.m. BST, so basically in 22 hours. Jazakallahu khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.